Hey guys, hope you're doing all right. Today we're talking about dividing rational expressions. And it's basically the same thing as multiplying, and I'll tell you why. Whenever we divide, all you have to do is flip your second number and multiply. Dividing fractions is easy as pie. Flip the second and multiply. So all we're really doing here, for instance, if I have these two fractions, like you saw in middle school, 2/3 divided by 4/5, all I need to do is go 2/3 times 5/4. Flip that second fraction and multiply. 2 times 5 is 10, and 3 times 4 is 12. And 10 over 12 equals, after we reduce it, 5/6. So, long story short, all you have to do to divide fractions is multiply by the reciprocal of the second one. Flip and multiply. So the one that comes after the division. So take a look here at number 1 with me, please. So number 1, we have 5x over 2y squared divided by 15y cubed over 8x to the fourth. So what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this, but instead we're going to flip the second one and we're going to multiply. So it's going to be 5x over 2y squared times 8x to the fourth on top over 15y cubed on bottom. Now, we're going to multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. So 5x times 8x to the fourth is going to be equal to 40x to the fifth. And then 2y squared times 15y cubed is going to be 30y to the fifth. Then we just need to reduce it. 40 over 30 can reduce to 4/3. And x to the fifth and y to the fifth can't simplify at all, so they just stay right there. All right, now let's talk about undefined. Whenever we do undefineds for division, we need to check all denominators there have ever been. So we need to check what used to be a denominator as well. So whenever we look for undefineds, we're going to look at what is a denominator currently, but we're also going to look at what used to be a denominator to find my undefined. So for this y right here, we can say that y cannot equal 0. Remember, there's no plus or minus on this one, so it's just if I plugged in 0 for y right there, it would mess it up. Same thing's true for this y, but I don't have to write it twice. The important part is that we look at the top of my fraction because it used to be on the bottom, so it could have still messed things up. So we're going to say that x can't equal 0 either. Okay? All right, let's move on to number 2, and let's try this one out. So number 2, we're going to, once again, flip my second and multiply. Flip the one that comes after the division and multiply. So I'm going to write this as 4x cubed over 9x squared y times 9y to the fifth over 16. And now we're going to multiply. 4 times 9 is 36. X cubed times y cubed, we're just going to get x cubed, y to the fifth, like that. Over 9 times 16 is 144. And then we have x squared and y, nothing to multiply to. Then we simplify. 36 over 144, that can simplify to be just a 4 on bottom. And then x to the third divided by x squared. Remember, we subtract. 3 minus 2 is going to change that to a 1. So we're going to get just an x to the 1, or an x. Same thing here. This is a 1 right here. It's going to cancel. This is going to change to a 4, and we're going to get y to the 4th. So my answer is going to be x, y to the 4th, divided by 4. All right. Now for our undefineds. Remember, we look at what is on bottom and what used to be on bottom. So this x right here is on bottom, so x can't equal 0. This y is on bottom, so y can't equal 0. This 16, no effect, but this y up here would have effect, but I already have y can't equal 0, so I don't have to write it twice. Okay? So remember, we look everywhere that is in the denominator and what used to be in the denominator. Take a look at number 3 with me. So number 3, a little bit complicated here. What we're going to do is I'm just going to rewrite this 2x over x plus 3. That is my first fraction. So my first fraction, we have 2x over x plus 3. And I'm going to go ahead and put parentheses around that x plus 3 to show that it's its own factor. Then we are dividing my second fraction. So this second fraction here needs to be flipped. Okay? So we need to write our 4 on top and our x minus 3 on bottom. So whenever I write this, we're going to instead multiply by 4 on top, x minus 3 on bottom. Now, I only flip the one that comes just after the division sign. So this one is multiplying. So I do not need to flip my second one here. So this x squared minus 9 over 5 is just going to stay x squared minus 9 over 5. However, what I am going to do is I'm going to take this x squared minus 9 off to the side, and before I write it back in here, I'm going to factor it. So I need to factor this x squared minus 9, and then I'm going to write it back on top of that fraction. Now, x squared minus 9 is a difference of squares. And so what I can do is I can instead write this as x plus 3 times x minus 3. And that's going to go on top of my fraction here. We're going to have x plus 3 times x minus 3. Okay? That gets written right there. Then we can find my undefined values. So remember, when we look for our undefined values, we look at everything that is on the denominator or used to be on the denominator. So x plus 3, that's going to give me an undefined of negative 3. It's the opposite of that. X minus 3, the opposite of that is positive 3. 5, oh, that doesn't give me anything because there's no x. We only care if there's an x attached to it. And then we also have to look at what used to be in the denominator. And since I flipped this fraction, we also need to look up here. But once again, 4 does not have an x with it, so it's not going to affect my undefined. Then we're going to cancel things out and get our final answer. So we're going to go back here and we're going to cancel those that are the same. So this x plus 3 and this x plus 3 are going to cancel. This x minus 3 and this x minus 3 are going to cancel. And then nothing else can cancel, so we're going to multiply between here. Because remember, this becomes one big fraction, right? So we can multiply across the top, multiply across the bottom. So 2x times 4 is 8x. And I have a 5 on bottom. All right, let's turn the page. Let's take a look at number 4. So number 4, same idea. Here's how it looks, though. We're going to have a x plus 2 over 1. Remember, that's like an invisible little fraction, x plus 2 over 1. And to multiply it, we're going to have to flip it. So we're going to write my fraction into here. Here's a fraction. Here's a fraction. And instead of being x plus 2 over 1, we're going to instead write it as 1 over x plus 2. Then, my first fraction, I don't have to flip. So I can write this x plus 3 down here. Now, once again, before I write this x squared plus 4x plus 4, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to take it off to the side and I'm going to factor it. So we're going to have x squared plus 4x plus 4, and we're going to factor this guy. Remember, we can build our parentheses. You can do the x and plus if you need to. X times x is x squared. And now I need to think of a number that multiplies to this 4 and adds to the middle 4. And in this case, it's just 2 and 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 plus 2 is my 4 in the middle. So I can rewrite this here. Now, we're going to label my undefined. So my undefined for this one is x cannot equal negative 3. For this one, it is x can't equal negative 2. And then we're going to look at the top, because I flipped it, but it doesn't have an x, so it doesn't affect anything. Then we make it one big fraction, and we cancel out like terms. This x plus 2 and this x plus 2 can cancel. This 1 just kind of goes away, okay? Because it doesn't actually affect anything. 1 times anything is whatever it was. So all I have left is on top, I have an x plus 2. On bottom, I have an x plus 3. You can write it with the parentheses or without the parentheses, but that is our answer. Okay, take a look at number 5 with me. So number 5, here's what we're going to do. We're going to factor each piece individually, and we're going to put it back in the correct spots in my new fractions. So let me build out these fractions. So here I have a big fraction, and here I have a big fraction. Okay? And we are going to take each one of these 4 individually. We're going to factor them out, and we're going to put them in the right spot. So let's start with our top here. Bring this over to the side. We're going to have x to the 5th minus 4x cubed. And we can factor this first one by first pulling out a GCF. Both of these have a GCF of x cubed. So I can pull out an x cubed to the front and multiply that by x squared minus 4. All right, so because we pulled out the x cubed, we took the x cubed out of here, and we took 3 of the x's out of the first one. Then this x squared minus 4 is a perfect difference of squares. So I can write this instead as, build your parentheses, x times x is x squared, and positive 2 and negative 2 makes negative 4, and they add to equal 0, so that creates that perfect square. So that is going to go back on top, because we don't have to flip this one. So we're going to get an x cubed times x plus 2 times x minus 2. Then we need to factor out the bottom of this fraction. So we can come over here, and we have x squared minus x minus 2. And we're going to factor out that guy. So we're going to think, okay, what 2 numbers multiply to equal negative 2 but add to equal negative 1? In this case, it's going to be x minus 2 and x plus 1. So x minus 2 times x plus 1, that's going to go back on the bottom over here. So we have x minus 2 times x plus 1. Okay, now we're going to factor my other fraction. So starting off, let's take the top over here, and let's factor it. We have x to the 5th minus x to the 4th minus 2x cubed. So first step, we are going to factor out an x cubed as my GCF. That leaves me with x squared minus x minus 2. Hey, I think we've seen this before. So we know how to factor this. It's just going to be x cubed times x minus 2 times x plus 1. All right, here's where we have to pause and think. Where is this going to go? It started on the top here, but we were dividing and now we're multiplying. So we are going to flip it, and it's now going to go back on the bottom. So I'm going to rewrite this over here. On the bottom, we're going to write x cubed times x minus 2 times x plus 1. Then our last one, this x squared minus 1. I can take that over here and factor it. X squared minus 1 factors to be x plus 1 times x minus 1. I don't know why, but seeing those 1s really throws people off sometimes. But all it is 1 times negative 1 gives me negative 1. So these are my factors. We can put this back on the top because we flipped it. So it's going to be x plus 1 times x minus 1. Now, I need to find the undefineds for everything that is on bottom now or used to be on bottom. So the answer to that is we're going to have this x minus 2 is going to give me x cannot equal 2. This x plus 1, negative 1. This x cubed, remember if you have an x by itself with no plus or minus, even if there's a number in front of it or cubed or whatever, it's just going to give me an undefined of 0. Then this x minus 2, don't worry about that one because we already have it, right? Same for these x plus 1s. We already have it, but then we also need to look at this x minus 1, and that's going to give me a positive 1. We don't have to look up here because that's never been on bottom, okay? It didn't flip. All right, now we cancel like factors. So this x minus 2 and x minus 2 cancel. This x plus 1, this x plus 1 cancel. This x cubed cancels. And this, then nothing else will cancel out because these are minus and plus and they're backwards. So our final answer, what's left on top is x plus 2 times x minus 1. And what is left over on bottom is x minus 2 times x plus 1. So just that slight difference does mean that we can't cancel those out. Okay? So that's our final answer for number 5.